Excuse me. Yeah. Got my hopes and got my dreams. Still believe in impossible things. Oh yeah, what a feeling. Now, if you feel good too, I want you to put your hands together and repeat after me. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I got a good feeling. 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 Oh, yeah, yeah. I ain't got nowhere to be. Got my hopes and got my dreams. Hey, 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 hey. Still believe in impossible things. Oh yeah, what a feeling.
Hello and welcome to the live stream. Welcome, 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 you beautiful, amazing people there out in YouTube land. Thank you for joining us today. You know, I've been mentioning that I am opening my channel up to do interviews on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's when I'm off work. And so I've done a few interviews. I'm a man of my word. And we're helping people grow here in the YouTube sphere. So anybody that wants to have an interview, anybody that wants to come on my channel just like this and talk about their life, their YouTube journey, their YouTube channel, what they do, you know, anything like that, just hit me up, private message me via Twitter. That's how I get my guests on here. Magic Jones is in the house. Let's have a look into the chat before I go to my guest. Info Tech Collection, how you doing? ESN, OFW Vlog, My UK Homestead, Asan Mia, Dojo Allotment, Studio Geek, My UK Homestead, King K, Magic Jones. Type in the chat, tweet this live stream out, guys. Stick a like on it. If you have not stuck a like on it, please do so. Share this live stream out. Share this live stream out. Magic Jones took my advice. I see that. You're amazing. You are amazing. You are. You really are. So I've got a guest today. And I'm going to bring him on right now. Monty, across the pond, over in the UK, 7 p.m. And I want to say welcome to everybody around the world. It's probably Sunday. It is Sunday, actually, down under on the other side of the world. What is it? East of here. So how you doing today, Monty? I think you've got your microphone muted. Keep muting it. Talk now. It's muted. It's unmuted.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing, Monty?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, how did you find out about me? What made you message me? You know, how, let's give a little background of how this interview transpired.
I've been coming to your streams now for probably four-ish months. I started my YouTube career back in November. My first video that I posted was on November the 18th, and I was stumbling around how to grow my channel, how to develop, build my brand. And I think it was about in January, towards the end of January time, I bumped into your stream by a complete accident. I just found a live stream, popped in, and you still had your beard and your hair then. So I just popped into your live stream and said hello. And I've been coming back to your live stream quite regularly since then. I've really enjoyed coming along. Your approach is a lot different to everyone else's who runs live streams, and it's something that that I like quite a bit.
Thank you. And just so I, know for myself, what is this approach that you like? What's the difference? And this is, hold on a second here. Let me get, this is My Family Garden's YouTube channel here, guys. This is their channel right here, and I'll put their Twitter up, and their links to the channel. The links to the channel is in the About section along with their Twitter. So make sure, guys, you go and subscribe to My Family Garden. I want to subscribe to My Family Garden if you're not already subscribed to them. I'll put the link actually in the chat. If we've got any moderators here, please, if you would share the link, greatly appreciate it. All right, so that approach that that you're talking about.
So I go into a lot of live streams now, and a lot of them have become very sub for sub type live streams. Very much, I got you, get me back. I got you, get me back. And yours is a lot more relaxed than that. You come in, I really like your philosophy, pay it forward. So you come in, you meet someone, you watch a video, you be a real supporter, go back regularly. And this is something that you really encourage, rather than just a one bump in the number where you wake up the next morning and YouTube have taken it all away again. Whereas your approach is encouraging people to be actual supporters, to watch people's videos, support them the right way, and build a long-lasting relationship. And
yeah, and it's great and all, but I think a couple of people, there's a good number of people, they, get tired of me talking about the hashtag IAmACreator equals hashtag pay it forward and what the philosophy is of watching people's videos in full, liking them, tweeting them out, adding them to playlists, smashing the subscribe button, and then commenting after something meaningful about the video, and then that you watched it, liked it, shared it, added it to your playlist, and that you're now supporting or still supporting. Some people do get a little bit, it's the same thing, right? It's the same spiel. So they, I don't know, they get a little bit tired of hearing it. But the problem is that if you don't keep talking about this while you are on these live streams to people and there's new people in it, and you try to encourage these people, like you said, that you've been going to a lot of these live streams and you feel as though it's, sub for sub, you're getting people coming to your channel and saying, hey, I'm new to your home, visit mine please, which goes totally against the terms of service on YouTube, and you may lose your channel. So I tell everybody, don't do that, don't do it. just if you're going to support somebody, if if you might not feel, hey, this is not my cup of tea, right? It's not my cup of tea, this, but I'm going to give you a chance because I've got people that follow me on Twitter. So I'm going to share you out. I'm going to give you a watch. Who knows where your content will go? It may change and it might be something to my liking. I think that we should be giving people, a chance to, get seen on YouTube.
See, this is one of the things that when I first came into your stream, I came in and I posted something like 10 away from X number. And I remember you saying to me, don't do that. Just sit in the chat, get to know people, talk to people. And I was like, yeah, but all the other live streams I'm going into, that's what they're doing. And that's what we're doing in all the other live streams. So why do I have to do this in this live stream? So it was something new to me, something that I wasn't used to. But the fact that, you watch, leave meaningful comments, and don't expect something in return, it takes a lot of pressure off, because when I first went into these sub for sub live streams, when you were subscribing to people and they weren't subscribing to you back, you felt really you felt upset that they weren't supporting you back. You were supporting them, you were watching their videos, but as soon as you start to, it takes a lot of pressure off as soon as you start to think, right, I'm going to watch their video, but I'm not expecting something in return.
Yep.
So it takes a lot of that stress away. And YouTube can be a really stressful place.
Yeah, if you let it get to you, if you let it stress you out. But if you just, think, you know what, I'm gonna do how I would like to be treated, right? And if I wanted somebody coming to my channel to watch my content, YouTube doesn't tell me everything that I need to know. It doesn't tell me who put a like on it. It doesn't tell me who shared my live stream out. There's a lot of things it doesn't, it doesn't do. But we can actually tell the creator of the video, right? We can be nice. We can tell the creator in the video everything that they want to hear from us, right? Without even asking for them to come back and take a look at our content. And I think that in doing this, in actually going and watching and letting, paying it forward, as the philosophy is, being kindness. If there was more kindness in the world, I mean, you've got to take care of your own house, because if you don't take care of your own house and yourself and your family and everything, and your bills aren't paid and this, that, and the other, you can't take care of anybody else. But once you've got your own house in order, right? Once you've got your own house in order, you could just say, here you go. How's that? Boom, just walk away and don't expect anything in return, right? Don't expect anything in return at all. But I'm glad that you like it here. I'm glad that you like to you like the feel of this chat. I greatly appreciate it that you're here and you like the IAmACreator community and you like the philosophy and what we've got going on here. There's some amazing people. There are some amazing people, and we just got to keep paying it forward. We've got to keep people, letting people know about this. And I'm going to be doing more and more of this because I want to open up my channel to help others grow. I want to get to know more, people on YouTube like yourself, right? And you're from, my part of the world. I don't know if you know, I was born and raised in England, in South Yorkshire. You probably can't, my accent's probably a little bit broken. Just 7 miles east of Rotherham, near Sheffield. I don't know if you know that area. A coal mining town called Maltby. And you're in West Yorkshire, right?
I can't believe you just said that. You were born in Sheffield. I was born in Sheffield. I was raised in Darnell.
I know where that is.
So I lived in Darnell for the first 20 years of my life.
Are you a D-dad then? Are you a D-dad?
See, there's always something about the way you said, you pronounce your T's.
Yeah.
The way you pronounce your T's made me sort of think there's a twang to your accent.
Yeah.
And I'm well surprised. That's look how small world it is.
Yeah, it's a bastardized Anglo-American accent. That's what I tell people. It's a bastardized Anglo-American accent.
That's
Where, you know,
absolutely
it's
fantastic.
some Yorkshire in it. Yeah, 15 miles east. If you go on Google Earth onto maps and you type in Maltby, it's 15 miles east, I think, as the crow flies, you know, up the what is it? The M1, M18. Yeah. If you get on the Sheffield Parkway, head towards Rotherham, junction 33, I think it is, and get on the M1, get onto the M18, come off at the next one, and then make a right as if you're going towards Bawtry, Skegness, that, you know, that way to East Coast.
Yeah,
Try
I
that.
know. I know Maltby. I know Rotherham quite well. I mean, my junction was junction 34, so
Okay.
so
Yeah.
you're just the next one away from me. That
Yeah, it's a small world, right? Here I am
Absolutely.
now living in the United States. Used to be, you know, from that part of the world, and I'm here now. So, for those of you that are not familiar who is in the here that I'm interviewing, it is My Family Garden. My Family Garden. We're talking about life, YouTube, and more. Uh, you know, and the gentleman's name is Monty. He's over in England, West Yorkshire. We're talking to him today, giving him an interview, getting to find out more about Monty, getting to find out what his YouTube channel's about. We've just found out, you know, he said that he stumbled across my channel and came in and, you know, was talking to people and, you know, he was goal setting in the chat and he was asked kindly not to do it. And I guess he sat back and listened, and here we are today. You know, I guess you know, listening to my live streams while I'm in my car. I think you said when I had my beard on, you know, you heard me talking about the you know, having an interview, and I guess he was up for it. So Monty is here right now. Tell us a bit about your life if you want. You know, it's up to you what you want to go into. You know, and then we'll get into the aspect of the YouTube realm if you want to.
So, like I mentioned, I mean, I started off my life in Sheffield. I grew up there. I moved to Leeds for university, and I ended up just settling here. I'm married. You'll see my family on the YouTube channel. We do a lot of gardening, so all my kids are getting involved with my gardening. So yeah, that's. I don't. The thing is, when we started YouTube, um, it was something. I mean, I watched YouTube videos, gardening videos on YouTube for a very long time, and there was that thing inside me saying, "Oh, I could do this. I could do this," and then I felt really nervous getting in front of a camera and putting myself out there. But there's some really good YouTubers who do really good stuff on gardening, but then there's some not I'll be polite, not so good YouTubers, but they've got a big following, and some of the information that they put out isn't as good as it could be. Admittedly, they make a nice video, it's entertaining, but the information that they put out isn't as good as it could be. And one day I just thought, right, there's no point in me just saying I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I could do it, I could do it. Let's just do it. My wife really encouraged me. With most things, without my wife behind me, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, there's a couple more things here that I want to say. You know, ties into this whole conversation of you and I, what we have in common. Okay, so earlier on you were talking about you like the concept. It got you really thinking about the pay it forward type of thing, not expecting anything in return. And you know yourself as being a gardener, right? You can plant seeds, and some of those seeds don't grow, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can go to somebody's YouTube channel, you can watch that video in full, you can like it, and you could share it on your own Twitter account or Facebook or whatever you want to do, wherever you want to put this. right? You could put it there, and you know, nothing comes back from it, right? Nothing comes back for it. And that's how life is. You should not expect anything in return. But you know that the more seeds you plant, right, the more of a possibility that you're going to, you know, reap the rewards, right, from the garden. Growing up in the 70s, my father being a coal miner, we had a garden, and my father grew. He had a green thumb. People used to bring him plants, flowers, and stuff like that. And he had a greenhouse, a glass house, as it's called here in the States. You know, why do you call it a greenhouse? It's not green. It's got windows in it. That's what they say. It's a glass house. He grew tomatoes, marrows. People don't know what a marrow is here in the UK. I don't know if you grow marrows. And my
I grow
father used to.
marrows.
You do?
I grow marrow. Yeah, I grow marrows.
Do you put
So
stuffing in them and put them in the oven?
I can't believe you just did that accent. That was quality.
Do you though?
Yes,
Yeah.
stuff them with cheese, stuff them with peppers, and grill them. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah. People don't know what it is. It's. I think it's it's part of the cucumber family. I think.
Yeah. So
I believe.
marrows. I think in America they call them zucchinis. So zucchinis are courgettes, and then if you let a courgette grow, it'll become a marrow. So
Yeah, these things that my dad used to grow were like huge. They were massive. They're bigger than my head. Sometimes my mother used to have a problem putting them in the oven, but she used to cut the end off, put a hand inside, grab all the stuff from inside it, and then stuff it with, you know, stuffing that you would put in a chicken or a turkey. Put that in there, and then put it in the oven and bake it. And then once it was cooked, I remember it, you know, huge plate, put it on and cut slices off, and then cut it in half, and that would be on your plate along with like roast beef or, you know, whatever. But yeah, so my father was uh, a great gardener. Used to dig everything by spade, and I think what he did was that turned me off at a young age. I think like 7 or 8, and I wanted to go and, you know, play with my friends. He said, come on, help me dig this." I'm like, boy, this is too much hard work. I don't want to get involved with this. But it was great. I mean, he used to have these tomato plants, and he used to have a paw off a rabbit, you know, a life rabbit. You know, somebody had given him a rabbit. He skinned it, took the leg off it, he had the paw. And I don't know if you do this. He would go and with the paw because you're not supposed to touch, I think, the flowers on the tomato plants, and he would like knock the flowers, and the pollen would fall out. It's kind of like the bees because they're in a glass house, right? In a greenhouse. Hot Melinda Paranormal Damon Broadcast with a $2 super chat says, "Making me hungry. You are awesome." Thank you so much, Hot Melinda. I greatly appreciate that. I don't know if you do that. Do you do that?
see, that's quite a nice story about your father. Is your father still in Sheffield?
No,
Rotherham?
my father passed away back in 1995. But
Okay.
where I'm going with this is I should have learned everything that he told me, because that garden that he grew used to feed our family all year, right? All year long. Tomatoes, whether they be green or ripe, were brought in and they were made into chutney. And he made amazing chutney. Onions were pickled. Um, Beetroots. I used to hate the smell of the boiling beetroots in the kitchen. Anyway, this is about me. It's not about me. This is about you. So,
I'm enjoying listening to you.
okay.
But yeah, what you were saying about the tomatoes, I just use a toothbrush.
Okay.
So I don't have a rabbit's foot to do that with. I use a toothbrush to do the same thing. Or a cotton bud. I'm not sure. Q-tip, I think they're called in America.
Yeah. Q-tips. Yeah.
So yeah, so a cotton bud or a toothbrush will do the same thing. So you just tickle the tomato flowers, because they're in a greenhouse. The insects aren't getting to them as much. It just helps them pollinate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in this day and age, I think it's very, very important for anybody here in the chat listening to this. and I want to do this as well. You know, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do it. Grow food, you know. I mean, the thing about the earth is it's being polluted. We're actually spraying pesticides. We're actually um, messing with nature. We shouldn't be messing with nature with the way that we are. GMOs and all this stuff. We're actually fertilizing everything and doing everything with petrochemicals, right? And the soil is becoming dead. So growing your own food, you know what you're putting in your body, and kudos to you. Kudos to you for doing this and showing people how to do it. So, are you self-taught? You just went and watched YouTube videos and started doing this yourself?
I mean, most of the stuff that I've learned from my parents. Just like you mentioned, my father had an allotment when I was a kid,
Mm,
and I remember just running around the allotment, getting in the way, causing trouble while the old men were doing their work. But I mean, my father passed away in 1989. I was very young at the time. Um, and we always lived in a terraced house, so we never had a garden. We didn't have access to an allotment. We But on about 4 foot of concrete, my mum, she put in planters, and in those planters and raised beds, she'd grow courgettes, so zucchinis. She'd grow runner beans. She'd grow tropical vegetables, so vegetables that are normally found in Bangladesh. She was growing them in England.
mhm.
It was just absolutely phenomenal just to watch. So when we finally bought a house, we bought the house with, you know, the biggest garden that we could find. And the first thing we did was, right, we planted some trees. We planted lots of fruit trees. So we've got pear trees, apple trees, cherries, plums, figs in the garden. We've got all of these fruit trees growing in the garden, and that's the first thing that we wanted to do. That they're going to take time um, to establish themselves. So get them in the ground before you start on anything else. And like you were mentioning before, it's important to plant trees because every year for the last couple of years, I was thinking about getting Sharon fruit, um, and I kept on looking for the right tree, but the right tree never came along. And that started 2 or 3 years ago. Last year, I eventually got the Sharon fruit that I foresaw 2 or 3 years ago, and they were basically little twigs. Had I done it at the time when I thought about it, those trees would now be 2 or 3 years older. They would have got themselves established in the ground.
Right.
So if you want to do it, do it. Just get into it. Plant
Yep.
something. Get your hands in the dirt. Get connected with nature again. I mean, nowadays kids are so far away from food. Where we've removed ourselves so far away from food. If you ask many kids now, where does milk come from? They'll tell you the supermarket. They won't tell you. They won't be able to connect milk with a cow. There's kids that can't connect eggs with chickens.
Right.
So it's something that it's really important to try and build that connection back. And that's one of the things that got us into gardening in a big way. Is I didn't want my kids growing up not knowing how to be where the food came from and what the value of good food was.
Yeah, and I certainly, you know, remember that the tomatoes that were grown in my father's greenhouse, you know, I could just get one of those things, wash it under the tap, and I would pull the green stalk out the top, and I could bite into it like an apple, and then put some salt and pepper on it, and it was just delicious. I could eat two of those. You know, could a slice of cheese off, could have cheese and tomato, and I don't know if you remember Fletcher's bread.
Fletcher's bread, yep, I remember Fletcher's bread.
Man, that used to be the best white bread, you know, I mean, it's probably still garbage because it was, like, bleached and stuff like that, but that was the best. Thick sliced Fletcher's bread with some I think they were a Sheffield company. They were up by, past the Chef Wednesday ground on the left-hand side as if you're going out towards Penistone, I think,
Yep,
in Chef
yeah, yeah,
Chef
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
Um,
don't
the the Fletcher's bread, the bread factory, it's a massive employer in Sheffield, so a lot of people work there. my brother worked there as a student. I got refused a job there.
Really?
So I wasn't qualified to work in a bread factory when I was
Wow.
16. So
I
but,
think for a commercialized baking facility, I think that I have fond memories, and I wish, like, oh my goodness, I know, like, it's bleach flour, it's not good, but like the best tasting bread, the texture, the softness inside. I'm going back, reminiscing the outside, the crust. And a lot of people don't like crust on bread. Kids that I went to school with, that it'd be cut off, and you go to the house for a sandwich, and the parent, do you want your crust cut off? I'm like, no, give it here, gives it here.
see, that's more of that Yorkshire accent coming out. That's awesome.
Yeah. Um, but no, I mean, it's great that you've got your kids involved in gardening, and that you've got a YouTube channel, and you're showing the world what you are doing, because more people need to do it. Because if there is like a natural disaster, and there's no food in grocery stores, and you haven't got enough saved up, what are you going to eat? You know, what do they say? Like, if I remember 2000, I think it was 2001, or was it 2000, I think. September 2000. I don't know if you remember it. They they raised in England. I wasn't in. I was in England when it happened, but I was living. I was coming back as a forwards to the States at the time. I remember there was a gas crisis because they raised the price of gas, and people were, I mean, petrol is so expensive in England. It's just unbelievable. But I think it was like 4 pence or something like that. I can't remember. And this farmer from down south got this campaign going, and everybody took to the streets, and they were driving up and down the major motorways and highways at like half the speed limit, and it basically brought the whole of the UK to a standstill. People couldn't get to work. Trucks couldn't get to grocery stores. They went and protested and picketed outside oil refineries where the petrol tankers would come, and there was no food. Everybody started mass panic buying. No food in the grocery store. The shelves were empty. And I think it was set around about September time of 2000, if we go and look at that. But so it's important. Like I said, food in my house, me growing up until like after the miners' strike in 1984. That's when I think it was like 80, maybe 87, 88. I think that's when my father you know, really stopped growing food. But I really do wish that I would have watched him, got educated from him, because he was amazing. Anyway, I'm taking up your interview time again. So back to you, and what type of stuff you got going on your channel?
Um, I had a bit of a disaster over the last week. My computer hard drive died.
Okay.
So I lost a lot of footage that was unedited that I was going to put out over the next few weeks. But I'll tell you some of the stuff that's going on in the garden. The approach that we do, we take a no-dig approach to gardening. So we don't dig the soil. We try and disturb the soil as little as possible. The problem with digging, and this is what the commercial farmers are finding now, is when they dig the soil and they're disturbing the soil, especially with the heavy machinery and the rotary blades, they're cutting up earthworms, and earthworms are the fuel factory of the soil.
Mm.
As well as that, there's tiny mycelium, so really thin strands of mycelium fungus that stretches through the soil, and it can be meters and meters long. And I've shown some of the mycelium, what it looks like, in a couple of my videos. But it just looks like a white hair sometimes,
Right.
or a white spider's web. And this basically is one of the most important parts of the soil food web. So when the nutrients or whatever you're going to add to the soil, so wood chips, whether you're going to add manures, whether you're going to add any type of organic matter to the soil, this mycelium will break down those nutrients and feed it to the soil. It's all about feeding the soil rather than feeding the plant. Because if you can create a nice soil condition, then pretty much any plant can thrive there. And that's basically what we strive for. Because there's parts of my garden where I'm growing acid-loving plants next to just plants that will survive in any other condition. So rhododendrons next to other flowers.
Yeah, and it's important to have flowers, right? Because they bring other insects in that your vegetables and the food that you're growing to eat.
Absolutely, they bring in the pollinators. So yeah. your bumblebees, your honeybees, your hoverflies, they'll be attracted by the flowers. They'll stick around because of the flowers. They'll get something to eat from the pollen from there, from the nectar from there, and then they'll go and pollinate your flowers. So without honeybees has become a massive pollinator now, but we forget other pollinators, like a lot of native bees. A lot of bumblebees. They do a lot of the work, and this is why when you mentioned earlier that food now has become so polluted, the use of commercial pesticides and the use of commercial fertilizers has polluted the earth so much. We've just had a ban in the last couple of years on the use of neonicotinoids, which was causing a massive decline in bee populations. Now, if bees become wiped out, if bees become extinct, then pretty much 1/3 of our food crops are wiped out because they're pollinated by insects. Things like apples, most fruit trees are pollinated by insects. I mean, there are crops that are wind pollinated, so your sweet corns and your rice and your wheat and stuff like that. Yeah, but your fruit crops, your tomatoes, your courgettes, without the humble bumblebee, we'd really struggle.
Yeah, it's amazing what we take nature for granted, don't we? We really do. What happens in nature, we really do take it for granted. A lot of
Absolutely,
people
we
do.
do. Absolutely, we do. I mean, one of the biggest thing every individual on this chat right now can do to help the environment is plant a tree. Plant a tree. Create a small pond in your back garden. It doesn't have to be a massive pond. All it has to be is the size of a bucket, some water. The minute you create that environment, you're going to attract frogs. You'll attract toads. You'll attract little hoverflies. And the first time ever I saw a dragonfly in my garden, we put in a pond last year. So we put in a pond last year into the garden, and the first time I've ever seen a dragonfly in the garden. I wish I had my camera close to hand, but it was amazing to see.
Yeah, they are amazing creatures. I live at the side of a lake. I do actually have a pond in the yard here, but we don't like, because we're in the woods. My girlfriend Janine, she she's probably, if she's watching this, she's probably cursing right outside. No, I don't want no freestanding water on my property around here because of like mosquitoes, right? And every time she goes out, she gets bit up by these mosquitoes. But what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to attract more birds into the yard, and we need to actually build some bat houses, because the birds and the bats obviously will eat the mosquitoes. They'll keep those insects down.
Also, if you can add some fish to the pond, that'll eat mosquito larvae. So any type of carp species will do that. Any type of I don't know what your climate's like.
Oh, it's humid.
Does it get very cold in the winter?
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird because we live in some hills, not mountains but hills, and it can get cold. We do get snow. Yeah.
Okay. So things, I mean, this is one of the fish that they introduced into, you know, parts of Africa and parts of the subcontinent of India. They introduced a lot of guppies over there. Guppies are brilliant at eating mosquito larvae. But any carp species, sticklebacks are great. I don't know if you ever collected sticklebacks when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Sticklebacks are brilliant for eating mosquito larvae.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Maybe I'll buy some cheap fish or something, put them in the pond. I mean, there's all the plants are there for them to live on. I think there were fish in it, but see, we don't own this. We just rent, and that was put there by somebody else prior. And there used to be when we got here fish, but we don't. We never cleaned it out. It's got leaves in, and you know they say that it should have took care of itself.
See,
Go ahead.
with a small body of water like that, it's not going to take care of itself unless it's, you know, unless it's really well filtered. It's not really going to take care of itself. A couple of water changes or partial water changes a year will be required to manage a pond like that.
I want to ask you a question. I came across a documentary, and I believe this town or city is in your neck of the woods. It's in West Yorkshire, I believe, or North Yorkshire. So this documentary, I can Google it and I can tell you what it's called in a minute. I could find it. They decided in a meeting in a cafe in this village that basically they were going to go and take over the village. There's going to be no grass. They were going to grow plants. So all around the fire station, the police station, all, you know, like civic public buildings, basically now all around this place, they have plants growing, and gardening is one of the things that is taught in, you know, in the schools in this place. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, I was just about to Google it.
I'm not sure of the exact city that or the town that you're talking about, but there's parts of Morley that do that. Morley's a small township of Leeds, and there's a couple of, well, I'm going to say old ladies that basically they call it guerrilla gardening. So they've taken over public spaces. So typically where the council would spend money on planting flowers and planting other kind of interesting things, these ladies have gone around planting strawberry bat plants. They've gone around planting runner beans. There's a park just by where I live. There's a small square. They have a farmer's market once a month. But they're actually growing courgettes, they're growing runner beans, they're growing peas in just an area where they're normally planting flowers, and it's just managed by the local communities. So there is a big movement in the UK over the last few years. There's been a big movement, big push for people to go and grow their own food. A lot of people have got into allotmenteering, taking on allotments, growing their own food, getting back to nature. I think worldwide, especially in the western part of the world, people are starting to slowly, but they are starting to wake up a little bit.
This place is called Todmerton.
Yeah. Okay, so Todmerton is not far from me at all. It's probably about 20 miles from me.
Yeah. You've got Huddersfield to the east of it, and you've got Blackburn to the left of it, and it's very close to Burnley.
Yeah. So if you were heading across to Lancashire, you could head through Todmerton.
Yeah. It might be interesting for you to take a trip out there, because there's this thing, it's called Incredible Edibles. I mean, if you Google this, there's a documentary. It's about this village that basically they don't want any grass. They don't want anything that's not of value, I mean, I'm sure there's grass and stuff like that growing, but they're trying to take the space back that they're, is public, that they're spending their taxes on. And the people of this village, what they're doing is they're just growing in as much space as possible, food and stuff like that, but they're also teaching one another. And if I ever went to England, I would want to go and see this place because watching the documentary that I saw on, and it's been a while back now, watching the documentary that I saw a while back, it was amazing what these people are doing. You know, kudos to them. So I just wanted to know if you were if you're aware of that, and it might be something that you might want to go out there and make some video about and talk to some people, because I do find it.
See
Go ahead, sorry.
what was going on in Todmorden, I wasn't sure of, but there's a couple of elderly ladies in Morley, which is the city I live in, or part of the city I live in, that are doing very similar. They're doing a very similar sort of project in that little part of the town. So that's a really good idea, that try and connect with these kind of people and do a small interview with them.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it give you some stuff to put on your YouTube channel. You know, if it's not too far away, what is it, like 30 minutes from where you live? 40 minutes at most. I know that the road network in England now, it's, you know, because it's not straight roads like it is here in in England. It's all windy roads. And
with Todmorden, it is one of those type of areas that you would have to go along with back streets. So you'd be going along there on 30-40 mile an hour roads rather than the motorways. So it would take probably about 40 to 50 minutes, I think. But it's not that far. It's not.
So you basically your YouTube channel. Oh, you were mentioning something earlier on about being like kind of shy, not having the confidence to be in front of the camera, and you overcome that, right?
It was one of the things that I was very conscious of, going out and putting myself in front of a camera. Am I going to say the right things? What am I going to do? And that's how will I be taken? How will people perceive me? That was something that what did weigh on my mind quite a bit, and I think that's why I sort of got the kids involved a little bit, to distract the attention away from me at times. But it's nice having them involved. I really enjoy having them involved, and it gives them something to talk about as well. But yeah, so that's one of the things about with the videos. It gives you that little, you've got that scope to edit videos and change things. If you've said the wrong thing, you can edit that out. But about mid-March-ish, I started doing live streams. And since I started doing the very first live stream that I did, I was so nervous. I was panicking. One of my friends, you might know him, Ken Vlogs. He basically pushed me into doing live streams. So I eventually said, okay, right, this day I'm going to do a live stream, but I want you to do a Google Hangouts with me, because I'm nervous about doing it on my own. Typical me, I couldn't get the Hangouts to work, so
Yeah.
so I ended up having to do the live stream on my own. But before I was going to do the real live stream, we had like a test live stream, and there's a few people that I'm noticing in here. People like Was Blind, people like My UK Homestead, people like Dojo Allotment. These guys, you know, they're friendly with me. They've been looking after me since pretty much day one. And as soon as I went live, they all piled in. They called in other people. You know, they sent the message out that he's live. Come and join the chat. And I think I had 90 thumbs up in that very first live stream.
Wow, that's really good.
And it was down to these guys, because they really backed me. They really backed me and gave me a lot of encouragement. And now when I do a live stream, when I first started doing live streams, I try and plan it. Okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do when I can't think of something to say. I'm going to ask these questions, or I'm going to push it like they try and steer the conversation this way. Now I can go onto a live stream, have a vague topic in my mind, and just let the people who are coming to join the live stream dictate the way the chat goes.
Mhm.
And I'm quite lucky that I've got a nice supportive base, and a lot of them are in this chat today. I can see them. I can see the names popping up the chat. You guys know who you are, and I really appreciate the fact that you do come in and you give me that support, because without you guys, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
And that's, that's one of the things as well, that, what we do and I've done and I've had people, thank me for is helping people with their confidence. I tell people, listen, if you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't, if people say stuff to you, if you can't just laugh it off, if you can't just, I made a right fool of myself there and just laugh at it, having that self-confidence to be in front of the camera doing YouTube, there's only one person that can do it. Basically, it's yourself, and you've got to be able to laugh at yourself. That's what you got to do. If you can laugh at yourself, it doesn't matter what people say to you. You just laugh it off and just move on. And it doesn't matter whether if you're recording it and you're editing it, you can edit stuff out, like you said, that you don't want in it. But live streams, I love live streams because it's live, right? You can do stuff on here, and it doesn't matter if you say the wrong thing. It's here, and that's it. It's to stay.
The other thing I love about live streams quite a lot is you actually get to see the real side of a person. When you watch a video, you're seeing a very much an edited version of that person. But when you watch a live stream, you're watching them. You're watching them. You're watching them in all their, with everything, all the masks taken off. Any mistakes, you can see them. You can see how they're going to react, to a comment. You can see what the temperament's like. You see more about them, and you get to know them a lot better. And I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, you
And
can, you can get to see more of the character, the person, like you're saying. You've got that right there. Yeah. It's I like live streaming. I like the interaction of the people that are in the chat, and I like having people up on here, having panel discussions and interviews like this. This is amazing that, here I am, like on the other side of the planet to you, and we're talking via this, and people can, you know, we've got a lot in common, and it's a small world when we really, really think about this. It really is a small world.
what's more amazing is that we grew up pretty much in the same place.
Yeah, yeah, we grew up, not too far from one another, like 15 miles from one another. That's
That's,
amazing, right? Both from
that is absolutely amazing.
Yorkshire. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. So how much space do you have that you grow on?
From the back wall of our house to the bottom fence, is 50 meters.
Okay.
The gardens are sort of an L shape. So the top part is probably about 15 meters wide, and the bottom part's about 25 meters wide.
So you're looking at, what's that, like 100? If we just do 3 foot per meter, I know it's 3 foot 3 inch. But if we do 3 foot, that's like 150 foot long. And you said about 15 meters wide, 45 feet wide.
So okay. 15 at the top. Yes, but it's only a third of that I use for the garden. Yeah. So we split the garden into 3 bits. So there's my wife's bit, there's the bit for the kids, and there's my bit.
Oh, that's cool. You've all got your own bit. That's great.
So my wife has a nice seating area, a pond, so nice flower beds, nice relaxing area, barbecue place. The kids have their swings, and we do have grass for them to run around on. And then there's my bit where all the fruit trees, all where all the real action happens.
Amazing. You know, I mean, here you are, you've got your own little it's providing food for you and your family, you know. And do you have any wildlife? Do you have like any chickens or stuff like that?
Yeah, we keep chickens. We've got 15 hens,
Wow.
so quite a few different breeds. We've got probably 5 or 6 of the standard red-laying hens. We've got silkies, bluebells, um, bantam. Oh, I forget the names. We've got some crested cream leg bars, so they lay a turquoise color egg. So
Mm.
things that you're not going to buy in the shop. So we get white eggs, we get blue turquoise eggs, we get
Yeah.
dark brown eggs, we get light brown eggs. You just won't see that in the shop. In the shop,
No.
they're all going to be the same shade of brown.
They're going to be
We get
one or two colors, like you said, brown or white, because they bleach them, don't they? And that's
no,
why.
no. There is a hen that lays white eggs. The name's just gone out of my head. Um, leg bars. So cream. We've got not leg horns. Sorry, leg horns,
Mm.
not leg bars. I've got some bantam leghorns that lay small white, pearly white eggs. Um, Absolutely beautiful. And then I've got some elderly chickens, shall I say. They're not laying at all. They're pretty much freeloaders. But because we've had them for 5 or 6 years, uh, we don't we we're just giving them a place to retire now.
Right.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of rescues as well. So factory hens that would have otherwise been turned into cat food.
Well,
We've got a couple of
the
those.
freeloaders, but surely they are producing waste, which is good for the garden, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, um, this is this is one of the things that I do quite a bit. We compost. We
Mm.
compost a lot. Um, I jokingly say to a few people that I probably enjoy composting more than I enjoy growing the plants. Um, but I've got a crazily complicated composting system as well.
Mm.
um, because I compost all my chicken manure and my chicken bedding separately, but then I compost my garden waste and wood chips in a hot compost pile. I I make slow compost as well, and the reason for the differences in all of the different types of compost is things like chicken manure contains a lot of nitrogen, and because
Right.
it contains a lot of nitrogen, it's going to be very hot for the plant. So you have to let that age separately. And if you let it age separately, then you've got a really nutritious fertilizer that you can use in small doses and just feed your plants. But with the hot compost, that again there, I'm using a lot of garden waste, a lot of kitchen scraps, a lot of things that otherwise would have ended up going in the brown bin and off to landfill. um, I'm composting that in the back garden, and we're making nutritious soil out of it. It's quite a quick process. And then I do a cold compost, which is and the reason that you do a cold compost is with hot compost you do end up burning a lot of the nutrients that are in the materials, but with cold compost you're not doing it's not as intense, so it's slowly breaking down over a couple of years, whereas with
Mm.
hot compost within 4 to 6 months you've got a nice ton of compost. um, but then I use my chickens as well uh, to see. It's quite complicated. You need to see my chicken composting video, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because on the floor of my chicken run, I pile that with wood chips, I pile that with grass clippings, I pile that with little yard bits of yard waste, and let the chickens, through their pooing, through their walking and scratching, let them break it all down.
Right. Do you have a chicken
And then
tractor then? Are your chickens in a chicken tractor?
they're not in a chicken tractor; they're in a fixed run.
Okay.
I was gonna, I did say I was gonna build a chicken tractor this year, so I can move it around on my beds, but I haven't got around to doing it. It'll probably be a project for next season now. But yeah, it's a fixed run. it needs a bit of work. It needs rebuilding actually this year. That's one of the targets for this year's big jobs.
Yeah, when I grow up, like I said, my father had the garden. Up the back of the yard, there was some wasteland, a garage site where this like elderly people's like center where people would go, and it burnt down, so they built it somewhere else. But there's some wasteland up there, and there were some allotments and a wood yard, and there was a guy that had a small farm that had chickens, pigs. What else did he have? He had something else. A lot of stuff. He had a lot of stuff on this farm, this small farm. And so I grew up around all that. And then my uncle, my brother-in-law, he had goats, he had chickens, and he had like an allotment that was all fenced in and everything. And so I grew up around all that. And you know, how that all worked and everything. Because it's all, all works in synergy with one another, right? That's what nature does. It all works in synergy. So taking something out of the ecosystem can have a knock-on effect for other things. And I remember my friend bought some ducks and they weren't laying eggs. And I'm like, Terry, I think the reason why they're not laying eggs is like a month later. It says, because you don't have a duck pond. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I think it got chickens. Chickens will lay eggs. I think they need to have some water. They want some water to like go on. And the next day, I knocked on his door, went up to see him, and I was greeted with a spade. And he's like, come on. I'm like, what we're doing? He's like, we're digging that pond that you're talking about. So he wrote me into that, and then we filled it and with water, and he let the ducks out, and within a couple of days they were laying eggs. It's like crazy.
See, what you're saying is absolutely right. You have to create an ecosystem. You have to let the ecosystem do the work. We don't use chemical fertilizers. We don't use pesticides. We don't use any herbicides. Whatever's in the garden is meant to be in the garden. So a lot of people complain about slugs, but I complain about slugs. I hate slugs. They're the biggest pests that are in the garden. But we have little pockets of water where we, little ponds. So just a little bucket with water that we just leave about, let it get overgrown by weeds, and that attracts toads. Toads come and they'll deal with the slugs for me.
Mm-hmm.
So they deal with the slugs for me. I let the chickens scratch about. They're eating little bugs and creepy crawlies. They're helping me out as well. But as long as you can manage that and balance that ecosystem, nature knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Nature knows what to do. We just need to stop messing about with it.
True that. True, we do. We do need to. We do need to stop messing around with it. Do you have any bigger plans? Are you thinking about getting some land, more land, and growing like you're doing on a bigger scale, or you're okay with what you've got?
I'd love to have a few acres, and I'd love to keep, make a real go of this. Um, it is a dream, but obviously it costs money. Um, uh, my I'm not. I have some health issues, so that would be a bit of a hindrance for me. Yeah, but I would love to do it. I'd love to do it. I'd love to have a farm and love to have animals, goats, horses, cows. I'd love to do that. I keep on toying with the idea of getting a goat for the garden, but the licensing process is so complicated here. It, it just makes it, unless you're a commercial goat farmer, it's not really worthwhile.
So you can't have a goat as a pet. Is that what you're telling me? You can't have a pet goat. You've got to get a license for it and all this craziness.
You've got to get a license for it. You've got to get registered with DEFRA. The goat has to. You have to have the annual vaccinations that you've got to prove to the government that this goat has been vaccinated in this way.
Wow.
If the goat ever leaves the property, you have to keep a register of where it's gone, where it's, how it moved. It's ever since we had a few years ago. I don't know if you heard about it. We had the foot and mouth crisis.
Yeah.
And since then, they've really clamped down on these kind of things. So we can't have a pet goat because, because of all this without this license. It's some. I keep toying with the idea because goat's milk for people with eczema. Goat's milk is really good for people with eczema. So if I could have a goat that would give me milk every day, that'd be fantastic.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing that we have this whole, and don't get me started on the licensing and stuff like that. That's one thing that I do like about America still. It's it's a lot freer. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some crazy laws here, but like going and getting a driver's license here, like compared to the UK now. It's just like walking into a shop and saying, I want to get my driver's license. So they say, okay, sit at this computer, take a test. Let's go out and drive. Then you come back in, and if the guy thinks or the woman thinks that you're okay, take your photograph, and you receive your license within 2 weeks in the mail. But they give you one that you can do. Like England, what is it now? Like you have to wait like 6 weeks to get a test to do a written test. And then once you've done that, another 6 weeks to go and sit with somebody, an instructor. So you're like looking at what, 12 weeks to get a driver's license?
See, the driving process in the UK is very complicated. But that said, we do have some of the safest roads in the world. So there, there is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of in a lot of the things, but sometimes it can be helpful. But sometimes it can be a real hindrance. Like you were mentioning, around things where having that independence, having that freedom, those kind of civil liberties can be restricted, especially where it talks about if you want to set up and be completely independent. Again, so if I wanted to be completely off grids, I'd need a license for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to generate my own electricity, in my where I live, the water table is very high, so I could very easily have my own well.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had wanted my own well, I'd need a license for that. I'd need a license to for drilling. I'd need a license to produce the water. I'd need to report. Need to have regular water tests done and to explain to the authorities what I'm using this water for.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy the amount of licensing requirements that you have to go through to do certain things. Um, it just blows my mind. Um, but anyway, that's a different story. We're here talking about your life, your family, your YouTube channel. What made you start? What made you start a YouTube channel? What made you decide to start creating content and putting it up on the internet? What made you do
I
that?
mean, I was watching a lot of good YouTubers. So there were a lot of really good YouTubers had quality information. The videos might not have always been the best, but they had some really good information. And then there were a lot of the entertaining type of YouTubers, but the quality of information wasn't there.
Hmm.
But they were putting out a lot of stuff. If I'm going to be brutally honest, a lot of it is quite garbage. What they're putting out, but they're getting views, and they're putting out a lot of this information. But they're entertaining, so people watch it.
Mm.
So rather than that, I just thought to myself that, look, I've been gardening now for in this plot where I am. I've been gardening here for nearly 10 years. My whole gardening life. I mean, I've grown up around it. I've learned from the best. I mean, my mum. I've learned from my mum, and yeah, so I've learned from the best. And I thought there's a lot that we can share. Do you know, there's a very popular gardening method called the back to Eden method.
Mm.
So a lot of people will be familiar with it. So that is good for warmer climates where the way back to Eden works is you just layer wood chips and you constantly layer wood chips, and eventually those wood chips break down and feed the soil.
Is it kind of like
Now,
lasagna gardening?
it is like lasagna gardening, but rather than with lasagna gardening, you'd be creating a single individual bed. You'd put in different layers of different materials. So you might put in straw, you might put in wood chips, you might put in grass clippings, you might put in food waste, and build it up.
Mm.
With back to Eden, it focuses just on wood chips.
Right.
Now, for our climate, I mean, the reason I found out about Back to Eden was we had a dispute with a neighbor at the bottom of our garden, and he'd basically taken a segment of our garden and fenced in our trees.
Wow.
And in order to get this fence line corrected, we had to have these trees cut down, and they were massive, huge ash trees, probably as old as the house. So probably 70-year-old ash trees we had to have chopped down. Uh, but then we were left with the mess of what do we do with these trees? So I bought a small shredder and a small electric shredder, and I shredded pretty much three giant ash trees with this tiny little electric shredder. I think I went through 2 or 3 shredders. It's a good job I took out the warranty. But
Mm.
we shredded this. I shredded these ash trees and had this pile of wood chips. Now, the first thing that came into my head was, oh, right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to compost it. I'm just going to leave it and let it compost, um, then use it. So I started looking at how to use wood chips in the garden, and I came across a video. It's called the Back to Eden film by,
Mm.
and it's a man called Paul Gauchi, um, and he's been layering wood chips on his plot for nearly 30 years, and he doesn't water his garden. So he doesn't water his garden. He just literally goes out, plants his seeds, and just lets nature take its course.
Wow.
But because he's been doing it for 30 years, he's got a nice, at the very bottom, he's got a nice layer of organic matter. And at the very top, it's the fresh wood chips. So he's
Mm.
layering fresh wood chips, the bottom's breaking down, feeding the soil, and that's what he's growing in.
I actually
Whereas with
saw something kind of very similar to this. Somebody had um, some trees. There was a storm that came through, I think, a village or something like that. They had all these trees that were down. So they cut them up and they didn't know what to do with them. So we took them to this field that's, of his, and he just put them in a line, and they were facing, let me get this right. They were facing north to south. So imagine all these trees stacked on top of one another that have all been cut up into, pieces, going from north north to south in a long line. I think it was like 50 feet long or something like that. I'm sure it was north to south. Yeah, yeah, it was north to south. And then they threw other stuff on it, like, cardboard and wood chippings and some earth and whatever. And then they left it. And then they came back and they started planting trees and flowers and things like that on this mound of earth, right? That was about, I think it was something like 4 foot high, but it was pretty wide. So the sun comes up in the east, goes over to the south, and then sets in the west, right? So you have
Yeah,
all these plants and trees sat on this mound that runs from north to south. So everything that's on the east facing side gets its sun in the morning, and as it comes around to the sun comes round, and it's still getting sun, and it's still getting rays of light, and then the west side gets its light, and this thing was just producing masses amount of, you know, vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. It's an interesting video. It's on YouTube somewhere. I can't remember what it is.
I mean,
what it's called.
That method's called hugel culture. So
Okay.
hugel culture, they're basically hugel culture mounds. The process, it's a German word, so it's spelled with a hugel and then culture with a K without the E at the end. So
and basically, as everything breaks down, as the matter breaks down underneath, it's fertilizing the plants. You know, the roots are getting all the nutrients that they need, right?
Absolutely. I mean, one of our beds, we did a similar type of thing. We dug out the bed. We probably dug down 2 feet, and then at the bottom of the 2 feet, we laid in rotten logs, so smaller logs that the guy who cut the trees down didn't want. So he took the big logs because he was going to burn them in his wood fire. We kept the branches and we kept the smaller bits. What I couldn't shred, I just kept in a pile. So what we did with that was we buried it underneath, covered it with grass clippings, leaves, and then we mounded the soil back on top.
Right.
I mean, eventually it was level, probably raised about a foot off the original ground. But that is definitely one of my best beds that I've got at the moment.
Yeah, and like you're saying, that if you do certain things, they're basically maintenance free, right? They just run themselves. You know, if you're doing a certain, if you're you know, if you're gardening a certain way, you know, there's very little watering needs doing, or if not, no watering. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and you just, you know, you just put your seeds in, or your plants, your seedlings, and it just grows and it produces food for you.
I mean, once the soil is right, it will take care of itself. We don't need to interfere that much, but because we're so into interfering, that's why we think we need to do something.
Right.
It's probably the reason that I compost so much, because if I wasn't composting, I'd try and dig the soil, or I'd try and do something. I'd just get I'd just get fidgety that I'd have to do something. But that's one of the reasons that I can't probably compost so much, because at least there I'm messing with something that isn't gonna affect the soil life right there and then.
Yeah, you're right. That's what my girlfriend just brought me a note in. She says Yugal culture. Yeah, you're right. That's the mound.
Yeah.
That was very interesting. When I watched that video, I'm like, wow, that's amazing that this guy just got these trees, these branches, laid them all out, threw all this stuff on top, and now he's got all this food growing from it. Amazing what you can do. I don't know if you want to go to questions from the chat. We're like an hour. We're like an hour and 20 minutes into this, so it's a great interview.
It's up to you. No, I normally have a scheduled live stream on a Saturday evening that's supposed to start 20 minutes ago, but I've lost track of the time.
No, I've been enjoying myself. I hope you have. It's been amazing.
I felt a little bit, I'll be honest, I felt a little bit nervous at the start, but I've settled into it, and I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed learning about you and finding out that you're another Yorkshire lad.
Yorkshire lads, yeah.
Yeah, that's quality, absolutely brilliant. But we could take a couple of questions. Let's round it up to 8:30, and then we'll what do you think?
It's up to you, mate. You know, you're the guest here. You can bugger off right now if you want.
Let's round it up. Let's round it up. Give it a nice even number, and then we'll leave it there.
All right, we want to go to 3:30. 7 minutes from now. Is there any questions in the? Are there any questions in the chat for my family garden. My family garden. So is your family originally from Bangladesh then originally?
Well, my family's been in the UK for close to 60 years.
Right.
My father came over just after he worked on the ships. So he worked in the merchant navy as a young lad, and then settled as a deckhand, and then settled in the UK. And he worked his way up through the steel mills in Sheffield. Um, I was born in the UK. My roots are in Bangladesh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way when I listen to some of the stories, my mum was the first Bangladeshi woman in the whole of Sheffield.
Oh wow.
So and at that time it was all there were a lot of men that had immigrated into the UK. They were manning the steel mills, they were working in the pits, and she tells me because because she was the only woman, she was cooking for sometimes she was cooking for up to 50 people. And in those days, it was the times without freezers and fridges and the luxuries that we have now. You know,
Yeah.
the
The stuff we take for granted.
yeah, yeah. Um, so when I hear some of the stuff that they've gone through, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when my father came over, they were sleeping in, they were staying in beds. It was so many people to a room. Can't remember the exact number, but it was like two to a bed basically. So one would have the bed for the night. The other one would go off to work. He'd come back from work. He'd have the bed, and the other one would go off to work.
Right.
So that it's they had that shift pattern with even with the housing. Uh, they were crammed in, but they came over and they built themselves a life.
Right. BTD Brad, I don't know if he's in the UK, he's down in Bristol, co-host to my channel. He says that you should make videos on these stories. He says that's so interesting. And you could sit there in front of the camera and you could talk about stories that your parents have told you that you remember, just like you've just been mentioning that your father was in the merchant navy, came over here, your mother was the only, Bangladeshi woman here, and she, would feed 50 people. Wow, that's a lot of food to cook, that's a lot of work right there. That's a lot of work, especially like you said, when you don't have any refrigerators and the amenities that we have today to do it. So, um, and he's quite right. Videos on this type of talking about culture, how your lives were. I mean, I'm thinking about making some videos about my life and growing up and stuff like that. I think everybody's got a story to be told, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do interviews, because it's very interesting. It's very interesting, people's backgrounds.
When you asked me earlier why I started YouTube, this is also one of the reasons. We break down barriers. We can break down barriers. At the moment, the way the world's heading, people are becoming divided. And this gives us a platform to build connections with people that we wouldn't otherwise build connections with. We can step outside of our local circle and we can build connections with people and yeah, break down those barriers.
That's true. I mean, the world needs more kindness. The world definitely needs more kindness, and this community, I try to base it on that. Paying it forward is an act of kindness, right? Paying it forward. Hashtag I'm a creator equals pay it forward. Paying it forward is kindness, and that's the whole scope of this. The hashtag I'm a creator community, the philosophy. It's a start, I think, in the right direction, and uh, you know, I I I just think that if the people in the world, more people were kind, then the world could be a lot better place. There's nothing wrong with the world. There's just some people. There's something wrong with some people, and we need to think about that. Our actions towards others, and you know, I think there's better ways to help people. You know, gardening can be very therapeutic. I'm told people that suffer with depression and anxiety, if they're interested in gardening, or if they're interested in something in gardening, self-sufficiency, it can be nature just as a way, I think, of helping people um, with their life. They say that if you go and spend, if you go out into nature, so if you go out into the countryside, you go out into the woods, you go and sit by a lake or a river for 2 hours, where where you just listen to the birds and what's going on in nature. Um, it's very therapeutic for the soul. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
See what you're just saying there. There's a quite a he, he's a philosopher more than he is a gardener. His name's Masanobu Fukuoka. He's Japanese. He pushes the concept of natural farming, so working with nature rather than against it. So less interference, growing crops that will seed themselves, growing crops that will be natural to the environment that you're going to have little input into. Um, I mean, there's a few things that for an industrial scale that would work, but wouldn't work for my scale. Like he mentions about with trees, you should leave them growing tall, you know, because trees tend to grow tall rather than being pruned.
Hmm.
Whereas if I did that, I'd block out the sunlight to the rest of the garden.
Hmm.
Um,
So you've got to
and
cut yours. You've got to cut your trees, so because you
so,
need the
so
light to come in.
we need the light to come in. Uh, we need them. I mean, we're only very small, so we need to be able to manage them. We need to be able to pick the fruit ourselves. So there's those kind of things. Um, but he's an absolute genius. There's a couple of videos with him where he talks. I think the videos were done in the 80s, so the sound quality is really poor. They're on YouTube.
Mhm.
Look him up, Masanobu Fukuoka. He's absolutely he is a philosopher, but they look at him and say, okay, this is a gardener talking, but
Mm.
to me, he's a philosopher.
So it's not Alan Titchmarsh then.
No, no, no. I mean,
Oh, who
I
is a
think he.
wonderful god? Who is a wonderful gardener? I think but it's like still back to that commercialization scale, into of that. But
See, Alan Titchmarsh is very much a traditional English gardener.
mm,
He is very much that style, cut from that kind of cloth. The the movement is moving more towards a more organic, more natural way of gardening.
and I agree with you. I think that if my father would have known more about these ways that you're doing and that others are doing, and the lasagna and all this stuff, I probably would have got involved, and I'd have probably, I'd have been, I would know a lot about gardening and plants and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I totally agree. More of a more natural approach. Um, I totally agree with you. Sorry, I didn't mean to
The,
cut you off.
no, no. There's a question that I saw from my UK homestead. Um, she that it's Kelly. She's a friend of mine from she's been with me on YouTube since I started supporting me all the way. She's here as well. I can't believe it. But she asked, did my parents meet in Bangladesh or in the UK? My parents had an arranged marriage in Bangladesh. So that's how that. So that I don't think that my mum never really talks about it. But I don't think they even met until their wedding day. But they had a great innings. I mean,
A
they had a
great
great innings.
innings.
They've got, yeah. I mean, my father passed away at a very young age. He passed away at the age of 49. So if it wasn't for him passing away, they'd still be together. But yeah.
So I know that Monty's got to get off here soon. Is there any questions? Put them in the chat if you've got any questions for Monty, because I know he's got a live stream of his own that he's got to get to. And anybody here that is listening to this, if you want an interview, just hit me up on Twitter. Just follow me on Twitter. All my links are in the about section of my videos. Follow me on Twitter and then tweet at me. Say, hey, I'm following you. Can you follow me back so I can private message you so we can have an interview? I'm interviewing people. I'm opening up my channel. You know, I want to get to know people more. You know, just like Monty. Who'd have known, right? We're two Yorkshire lads, 15 miles away. We grew up from one another. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, Monty?
I'm 37.
Okay, so you're 13 years, close to 14 years younger than me.
Okay, so you're about the age of my brother. My brother's there's a 14-year gap between myself and my brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 51 this year.
Yeah.
I probably looked it with all that hair right before, like, a big beard. And which did you like best? Did you like all the big hair or the big beard, or did you
See,
like?
I like the big beard. I like, as you can probably tell, I like the big
Yeah.
beard. You just got to give it a brush every now and then.
I liked it too. I really did, but like the humidity here, man, it's just too hot. It's just too hot.
Yeah.
You know, but I do, you know, I do like to have a beard on my face and my hair not too long. So, but a lot of people. I don't. Did you see me? Did you see the live stream where I shaved it off?
Yeah, I watched the live stream that you shaved it off. It was funny. It was funny. Was it Sandy that was in the interview with you?
It's Kathy, Miss Kathy.
Yeah, she was really encouraging you to shave it off, and I was like, no, man, you got to keep it on.
Yeah, she didn't like it at all. She didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for Monty? My Family Garden. His links are in the about section to his YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to him. Go follow him on Twitter. They are down there too. And don't forget, guys, once this live stream is over, if you thought that this was really good, if you want to be a part of this, if you want to be interviewed Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, doesn't matter where you live in the world, James Cox will find time for you to get you that interview on here. You know, we could set it up. Are there any questions for Monty? Because I know he's got to get off and do his own thing, which is great. You know, live streaming is good. It's a good way of getting your watch hours. It's a good way to meet other people, you know, because they come in the chat, they talk to you. Any questions? And if anybody wants an interview, just let me know. Anybody? Well, I'm gonna just wait a minute here. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I really enjoyed myself. Yeah, it's nice meeting up with a Yorkshire lad, having a good old natter.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again. You know, in the not too distant future, we could talk about, you know, things in England, how they compare to things here in the States, or we can talk about Sheffield. I'm quite sure there's a lot of stuff that we can, you know, that we could talk about.
I lived in the States for a bit.
Oh, you did?
I went to university in Pennsylvania.
Okay. So all right. Awesome.
We did a student exchange. So I came over for a semester and went to university at IUP, so Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I was there for 6 months. So yeah, got a little bit of yeah.
That's good. That's good. So Dojo Allotment Mayhem Fenwick said, I'd love interview. Okay. Hit me up. Follow me on Twitter. let me know that you're following me by tweeting at me. I will follow you back, and we can set it up. My days are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because I am working Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So the days that I'm off, and that's why I am looking at doing this full time, from home, so I can reach out to more people. We can get to know more and more people. So I know you've got to get off, Monty. I want to thank you. I greatly appreciate you reaching out to me, and thank you for your kind words as well about me and the community, and all this. It's been a great conversation. We've reminisced. It's basically thrown me back to my childhood. Some of the things that I brought up. So it's great.
James, thank
Great.
you for having me. I've really enjoyed myself, and I've really liked getting to know you a lot better. Yeah, I've really liked getting to know you, because you're not someone's live stream I come into anymore. Now you're becoming more of a friend. So it's nice.
Absolutely. It's amazing how we can, through video communication like this and broadcasting it to the world, how we can get to know each other and become more friends, via this electronic system. And who knows, one day we may actually meet in real life.
That'll
It's
be
very,
something
very
to look
possible.
forward to.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. It's very, very possible. If there is anybody in the chat, speak now or hold your peace. If you would like to ask Monty, my family garden, a question, because he has to go. He has his own show that he has got to do. And don't forget, I'm going to put his link in the chat. That's my guest right there. That's the link to his YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to him. The link is also in the About section. Go and subscribe to him there. If you're, watching this as a video, you're not really paying much attention to the chat. You're just paying attention to the video. And his Twitter is down there. Go and follow him on Twitter and tweet at him. But I want to say thank you to my guest, Monty, my family garden. Thank you for coming on here. And I want to say thank you to everybody that's in the chat, everybody that paid it forward by putting a like on this, who shared this, who's added it to a playlist. And I want to thank everybody that's going to come back and leave me a comment about what you thought about the interview between Monty, whose YouTube channel is My Family Garden. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you all. So, if you would like to say, Monty, goodbye, Monty.
Thank you very much, everyone. First of all, thank you, James, for having me, giving me the time. Thanks, guys. Kelly, Dave, Was Blind. I've seen you. If I haven't mentioned you, I'm sorry. But thank you guys for coming over and supporting me as well. And everyone else in the chat, thank you very much.
All right, guys.
I'll see you soon.
Remember, guys, hashtag always be amazing, hashtag always be awesome, and always be hashtag I am a creator. With that said, peace, flip flops, Gandhi, and all that good stuff. We will see you probably in a later live stream today, or if not, 9:30 a.m. on my Sunday morning grind to work, and then on my lunch at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then 9 p.m. at night. That's Sunday through Wednesday. So, Monty, thank you. Greatly appreciate you being here, my brother. Thank you for the interview. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. We've got a lot in common. And it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Monty. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves, and have an amazing weekend, guys.